Today we will be flying the A-20G Havoc. The Douglas A-20G Havoc is an American light bomber, attack aircraft, night intruder, night fighter, and reconnaissance aircraft of World War II. Designed to meet the Army Air Corps requirements for a bomber, it was ordered by France for its Air Force before the US Air Corps decided the aircraft would also meet its requirements. French DB-7s were the first to see combat. After the fall of France, the bombers served with the Royal Air Force under the service name Boston. From 1941, night fighter and intruder versions were given the service name Havoc. In 1942, the US Air Force A-20s saw combat in North Africa. It served with several Allied air forces, principally the United States Army Air Force, the Soviet Air Force, the Soviet Navy Aviation, and the Royal Air Force of the United Kingdom. A total of 7,478 aircraft were built, of which more than a third served with the Soviet units. It was also used by the Air Force of Australia, South Africa, France, and the Netherlands during the war, and by Brazil afterwards. In most British Commonwealth Air Forces, the bomber variant were known as Boston, while the night fighter and intruder variants were named Havoc. The exception was the Royal Australian Air Force, which used the name Boston for all variants. The United States Air Force used the P-70 designation to refer to the night fighter variants. In March 1936, a design team held by Donald Douglas, Jack Northrop, and Ed Heinemann produced a proposal for a bomber reconnaissance aircraft powered by a pair of 450 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R985 Wasp Jr. 9-cylinder radial engines mounted on the shoulder wing. It was estimated to be capable of 250 miles per hour with a 680-pound bomb load. Reports of the aircraft performance from Spanish Civil War indicated that the design would be seriously underpowered, and it was canceled. In 1937, the United States Army Air Corps issued a new specification for an attack aircraft. To meet this requirements, the Douglas team, now headed by Heinemann, developed the Model 7B, but now was powered by a 1,100 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R1830 S3C3 G twin Wasp 14-cylinder engine, and carried a bomb load up to 2,000 pounds. It faced competition from the North American NA-40, the Streamman X100, the Martin 16-7F, and the unbuilt design of Bell Aircraft Model 9. The Army Air Corps invited all 5 companies to build prototypes at their own expense and to submit sealed bids for production of their aircraft. The prototype Model 7B made its first flight on the 26th of October 1938. The model attracted the attention of the French Purchasing Commission visiting the United States. The French discreetly participated in the flight trials so as not to attract criticism from American isolationists. The Model 7B crashed on 23 January 1939, while demonstrating a single-engine performance, killing the test pilot and seriously injuring a French observer aboard the aircraft. The presence of a foreigner on a test flight for an aircraft still under development caused a scandal in the press. Despite the crash, the French were impressed enough to place an order for 100 production aircraft on February 15, 1939. Following this up with an order for 170 more in October 1939. As a result of the French order, Heinemann carried out another major redesign of the aircraft. While the design's wings were largely unchanged, the revised design had a new, deeper, narrower fuselage, which accommodated a crew of 3, a pilot, a bombardier, and a gunner. The wing was mounted lower than the Model 7B, while the engine's 1,000 horsepower R1830 SC3Gs were mounted in nacelles slung under the wings. Normal bomb load was 1,410 pounds, or 1,800 pounds in overloaded conditions. with the defensive armament of a single 7.5mm Mac 1934 machine gun in dorsal and vertical mounted and 4 fixed forward-firing guns in the nose. The revised aircraft in DB-7 first flew on the 17th of August 1939. In 1939, the United States Air Corps decided that the new bomber was best placed to meet its requirements for an attack bomber, which had been updated in 1938 from those that gave rise to the Model 7B. And in June 1939, it had ordered 186 aircraft powered by the Wright R-2600 twin cyclone engine under the designation A-20 and A-20A. These had a large vertical tail to cope with the increased power of the Wright engines, had a long nose to give more room for the bombardier/navigator, and carry more fuel. The R-2600 powered aircraft also provided popular for export, with France ordering 100 DB-7As powered by the R-2600, but with the short nose of the DB-7 in October of 1939, and 480 long-nosed DB-73s equivalent to the A-20A in April 1940, and the British ordered 300 DB-7Bs, again equivalent to the A-20As, in February and April of 1940. In a report, the British Aeroplane and Armament Experimental Establishment at RAF Boxstone Down test pilots summed it up as, "No vices, and it was very easy to take off and land." The aeroplane represented a definitive advantage in design of flight controls, extremely pleasant to fly and maneuver. Ex-pilots often considered it their favorite aircraft of the war, due to its ability to toss it around like a fighter. The Douglas bomber/night fighter was found to be extremely adaptable and found a role in every combat theater of the war, and excelled as a true pilot's aeroplane. When DB-7 series production finally ended on the 20th of September 1944, a total of 7,098 had been built by Douglas and a further 380 by Boeing. Douglas redesigned its Santa Monica plant to create a mechanized production line to produce A-20 Havocs. The assembly line was over a mile long, but looping back and forth fitted into the building that was only 700 feet long. Man-hours were reduced by 50% for some operators, while production tripled. On the 5th of August 1942, Major General George Kenly and the commander of the 5th Army Air Force in the Pacific was touring Australian bases under the command when he came across a middle-aged Army Air Force captain dressed in mechanic's overalls and supervising a homemade, clearly unauthorized installation of a pack of 50 caliber machine guns into the nose of the 3rd Attack Group's A-20 Havoc light bomber at the repair depot at Charters Tower Airfield near Townsville. Intrigued, the general approached and learned that the man's name was Paul Irving Gunn, but due to his old age, he was called Pappy. The captain briefed the general on his modifications and its envisioned use in low-level, fast strafing attacks against the Japanese. The general was impressed by the captain's frank desire to more efficiently rain death and destruction on the enemy, since Kennedy was so similarly mindset. Kenny was of similar mindset. General Kenny also asked if it would be possible to rig bomb racks in the A-20s for the use of small par-frag bombs. Captain Gunn assured that general that would be relatively easy. The general liked what he had heard and instinctively recognized that Captain Gunn was both an inventor and a maverick. Without hesitation, the general had ordered Cut for the captain to join his personal staff as a special projects officer. In the meantime, he told Captain Gunn to stay at Charters Tower and to have 16 converted A-20s ready within 2 weeks. Working day and night with the 81st Depot Repair Squadron's engineers and mechanics, Captain Gunn didn't quite make the nearly impossible deadline. However, enough modified planes with gun packs, racks for 40 par frags, and droppable bomb bay fuel tanks had been delivered that by the 12th of September, 9 crews of the 3rd AG, practice in the art of low-level attacks, were able to participate in a highly effective raid against the Japanese airfield at Buna. The success of the mission marked the beginning of a long and close relationship between General and his new gadget man. What General Kenny didn't realize during the initial meeting with Pappy was that Captain Gunn was not a member of the repair depot or of the 3rd AG. Technically, he was merely a commander of an improvised transport squadron formed in the Philippines shortly after the Japanese attack. But flying unmanned transports was not how a cigar-chomping, eccentric Pappy Gunn intended to spend the war. He had a personal vendetta with the Japanese, as his wife and children had been captured in Manila and were civilian internees. In fact, by the time General Kenny met Pappy, the captain had already been in the thick of combat several times, flying A-20s, B-25s with the 3rd AG. His activities prior to that had been legendary among the locals. Thank you to those who stuck around to watch to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.